You are listening to Latinx America, a podcast focused on highlighting catalysts who are using, leveraging, or creating technology to help our community achieve more. With your host, Adriana Flores Ragade. I hope you're all having a great week. I just returned from a family trip to Europe to mark the 10th anniversary of my dad's tragic death. He always dreamt of traveling the world, but could not really make this dream a reality. So we, meaning my family and I, are traveling for him and fulfilling his dream. And speaking of making dreams a reality, today's guests are two high school friends who decided to combine their strengths to make their new venture a success. I first met Zach and Rock at Podcast Movement in Philadelphia while visiting with all of the exhibitors and learning about all of the podcasting related products that are out there. Zach is the founder of Squadcast, which is a product that I am using actually right now to record this episode. He had an idea of creating a product specifically for podcasters like me and launched his venture a couple years ago. He enlisted Rock's help since Zach has the technical skills and Rock brings the financial expertise. And I am happy to welcome them to Latinx America so we can learn about their journey, entrepreneurship, and also into tech. Rock and Zach, thank you so much for being with Latinx America today. Why don't we start by learning a little bit about your personal journey into tech? Zach, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to be on the show, Adriana. Happy to connect with your audience and you. Personal journey into tech, I kind of go way back. I grew up in a household where my dad was really into technology, worked in technology for state government, and therefore I had a lot of exposure from a young age under his direction, and then got into art, painting, all that stuff, and then figured out how I could combine the two, and went to art school and started my software engineering career at a pretty young age, and have been working in the industry since then. Had an internship in 2012 on the Chrome team at Google, and just been super excited with what we can build with modern technology since around 2009, 2010.
Were you part of the BOLD program?
No, I was an intern on the Google Summer of Code, which is specifically to contribute to open source. So I've been working on open source since about 2012.
Great. And I have to tell you, this is the first interview that I do where I'm interviewing two people at the same time. And why don't we go with Rockwell now and learn a little bit about your personal journey into tech, into where you are today?
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah. So my personal journey into tech. So my background is really in accounting. I was a CPA for about 5 years, and that's the job I got right out of college. So I did work on a few tech clients, and I really liked the environment of those tech companies versus the other companies I got to work on, which were like construction or agriculture. And, those are all interesting in their own way, but definitely much more old school. And so tech was always something that was intriguing to me. And then having a friend like Zach, and so Zach and I know each other from high school. And when he asked me, he told me about this idea he had, and it was a software tool for podcasters. I was like, okay, I'll do my homework, but let me check. And then I've been thrilled to be a part of it ever since.
Great. You'll be surprised by how many people that I've interviewed have mentioned people that they went to high school with that are now, partnering with them in some way. So it's great to hear that you had the relationship since your high school years, and you were able to now, work on your own company. Speaking of your own company, why don't we start by Rock, if you can provide a brief description of what Squadcast is all about. And we are using Squadcast for the first time, which is a tool that's allowing me to interview two people at the same time, which I'm really excited about. Do you want to talk a little bit about what Squadcast is about?
Certainly. So Squadcast at a very high level is basically a virtual studio for you, where podcasters can invite their co-hosts or guests to join us and connect and have a conversation online.
Great. And Squadcast was your idea, Zach. So can you talk about what made you launch your own company and how you got to where you are today?
Definitely, yeah. So we wanted to start our own. Like I was saying, I was super into open source and all that stuff, and was writing a lot of code. And like I mentioned, also came from a visual arts background, so I kind of wanted to go back to that and do a creative side project outside of technology. And for me, that really kind of I was getting excited at the time about the emerging genre in podcasting for audio dramas, for science fiction audio dramas, and it was just this new thing, and even within podcasting. So got really excited about some of those, and my brother, Rock's longtime friend, is an audio engineer, and then my best friend is a playwright, very talented individual. So it's like we seems like we have all the pieces to do this, and as a creative side project, and then we all live in different cities. So we started trying to do some research about how we could collaborate remotely on this project, and just really came up empty-handed. We just assumed it would be a solved problem because podcasting had been around for so long, and it really was not a solved problem. This challenge of recording
Mm-hmm.
audio remotely in studio quality. We tried some of the other solutions like Skype or Zoom, and my brother, being an audio engineer, just was not up to his standards with the quality of audio. So really started to think about, well, maybe this is an opportunity. The podcast industry is new, still relatively young, and emerging. So there's probably an opportunity to contribute something of value, and that's really where we started to look at, from both a technology product perspective, about what a product like this could be and could become and grow into, as well as a business model and a company to support that, and for the two to flourish together. That's when I started working with Rock, and also Vince, and pulling together what became our team to really consider what the experience could be like if podcasters could record audio from anywhere in the world and make it sound like they're in the same studio. That's kind of our internal mantra with the user experience, is should be in service of the conversation, like the one we're having now, for hosts and co-hosts and guests and producers, but also for the audio engineer that's going to cut this and mix this into the finished product for listeners. So it's really all of those perspectives are come together for the user experience that we are working to meet the need of.
So Zach, you saw a need, you gather your friends that brought different strengths, and you decided to launch this venture into this world of podcasting, which I have to say, I met both Zach and Rock at Podcast Movement 2018 in Philadelphia this past summer. And the world of podcasting is not very diverse right now. So when I saw two Latinos at an exhibit booth, I was like, oh, I need to go learn more about that company. And I was very impressed with what Zach and Rock had to say about Squadcast, and also just the fact that you're inspirational. I mean, you went and launched your own company, and you're creators. I mean that's what we're looking for to highlight in Latinx America. We want to highlight not just the users. I'm the user. I'm using your product right now, but you guys actually went and created this product, and you're trying to innovate in a fairly new industry. Which, speaking of fairly new industry, can you tell me how big the podcasting world is and what you know about podcasting world, so others that are listening can learn a little bit more about the industry that you're in right now?
Yeah. So it's bigger than most people think. I mean, we've been at it almost I think a decade now. Almost a decade for podcasting, and some of the numbers from like Nielsen tend to be around 550,000 podcasts to 750,000 podcasts. But numbers are a little bit of a challenge that also need a good solution within podcasting. So we'll take that at face value. But from our perspective, the community is massive and awesome and engaging, and we're happy to be part of the community. It's really helped us build a tool that's useful to podcasters. So you mentioned Podcast Movement 18. In Podcast Movement 17, we launched in beta at it was in Anaheim that year in California. So we got lucky; we could drive there, and we've been working with directly with the community to refine our product and user experience since then, really. And we also, being in the Bay Area, there's a very strong podcast community here, both in the San Francisco podcasters meetup group. If you're in the Bay Area, definitely check that out. And then also on the East Bay, the Oakland podcasters meetup. There's a very strong podcasting culture and public radio culture in the East Bay. So yeah, it's a great community to be part of.
And we've been talking about launching a South Bay podcasting community as well. So for those of you listening that are into podcasting or are podcasters, we would love to work with you on getting that off the ground in the near future. Rock, can we talk a bit about you have the business development hat for your organization. Can we talk about what you see your product doing in terms of having an impact? Like, who are you impacting, and what long-term impact do you want to have, not just in the podcasting community, but just in general?
Absolutely. So like Zach said, we kind of started this venture scratching our own itch, trying to create our own podcast. And then when we looked out to other solutions and options that experienced podcasters were using, we noticed that they were all having very similar issues to us, and we're kind of blown away by that. And so, again, as Zach mentioned, we've been involved with the community, listening to what exactly they're looking for. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Validating and just trying to make the process easier. We think a lot of people have had that, that have listened to podcasts have said, well, I could probably have a podcast. That sounds fun. But when they try it, they see that it's a lot of work, and, right now, not exactly a lot of pay either. So we're really trying to make it easier. We're trying to make it fun, and just less frustrating. Right now, most podcasters are using Skype to have remote conversations, and Skype isn't made for podcasters, so it doesn't have the best results as far as quality. And, a lot of guests are, a lot of time is wasted for the guest and for the host.
Thanks, Rock. Zach, you started your own venture, and I know that you brought your friends together, but you're in a niche market as well. How does one go about launching like your own company? Like, what steps did you have to take that you think others that are thinking about launching their own venture in a niche market as well, what steps or what advice can you provide for them?
Yeah, it's a lot of, it's daunting kind of from the outside looking in, but once you're in the process of starting a company, we looked at it as product first, and we would like have a legit problem that wasn't just specific to us, that seemed to be a problem that the community faced at scale. And then that community that we would be providing a solution to was also on a pretty good growth trajectory. So I think Peter Thiel recommends starting with a niche market, but a niche that is growing year over. And seemingly the best metric for that within podcasting is ad dollars year over. So we took a look at some of market research with the help of Rock. We collaborated on that early on to really define the landscape, the other players that were in the podcast industry, and then really start to see how we could fit into that industry. Those were some of the first steps that we started to take, and then really it's a process of validation. So like I mentioned, I went to art school, so before lean startup was cool and a hip term, to me, I define it as design thinking. So the IDEO methodology of design thinking was really driven home at an early age for me. And it's really just a process of coming up with ideas, validating those, and then building them out, and then validating for the steps beyond. So that was the approach we took from day one. Also, this skill that seems to be kind of not talked about all that often is we find critical to what we do and how we've gotten to this point, and that's this approach called just-in-time learning, we didn't go into this thinking that we knew how to start a company or how to build a product that people would love. We just felt confident that we could learn at a really good clip while we're moving forward, and that knowledge could immediately be applied to whatever it is that we're coming up against next. So that's, still true to this day, almost 2 years in. I'm proud to say that we read books, and then immediately, like before we're even done reading the book, we're putting that knowledge into what it is that we're building with Squadcast, either in our product or our company. So we thought about it from early on as these two parallel things that we needed to build: our product and our company. And really, by focusing on the podcast hosting experience, the rest of the pieces would kind of fall into place. And getting in touch with the community was a huge step for more rapidly validating some of the ideas that we had. And when I say validation, it's not just the stuff that we're using now and that did solve people's problems. It's also validating the ideas, the more outlandish ideas that we had in our early days, validating those out of existence to help have focus on what it is that we're building. It in hindsight, it's kind of easy to have a grandiose vision of something. It's hard to then refine that and focus in on the core piece, core problem, and the solution to that problem.
Thank you. So you're always changing things as you go along, validating as you go through the process, and there are good things that you keep, and there are some things that you're like, maybe this is not going to work out quite well.
Right.
But thank you, and I think you said it at the beginning. Launching something like this can be daunting, but you did it. I mean, you have your company. It's been around for 2 years. It's growing. So, first of all, congratulations, and I hope that
Thank you.
things continue to move forward. And so far, I'm sitting here, I'm interviewing you. This is the first time that I'm fully using your product, and I'm watching you. I feel like the three of us are in the room. So this is a big experiment for me as well, because I've never interviewed two people at the same time. So we'll see what our listeners think, and I hope that those of you listening can provide feedback to us, and hopefully you're gonna like what you're hearing. Rock, can we talk about some of the partners that you're currently working with? And what type of partnerships are you guys doing in this marketplace?
Yeah, so I think the most impactful partnership that we've made thus far in this journey is with Harry Duran, who is the host of Podcast Junkies. He's also the founder of a company, Fullcast. And so he's he's a big name in podcasting, and he's been helping us design the product. We met him at Podcast Movement back in Anaheim, and he's just saw something in us from the early days and has been working with us ever since. And he's really opened us up to, not only his network, but really, just giving us advice to get to the product to where it is today. Because, like Zach said, it's one thing to have an idea and build it, but then to get it validated by the very people that we want to use it. It's been super powerful, and it's been the best partnership, so far, but then also we're looking to continue. I would say another partnership would be Chris Chrismistos, who is the founder and organizer of Podfest, which is a annual event in Orlando. There's a lot of die-hard podcast fans in Florida. A lot of our friends, a lot of Squadcast hosts are based out of Florida because of that event. And we love going to these events. This has been the best way for us to be engaged with the community and really learn about them. What are they afraid of? What are their goals? What we didn't know that podcasting was this lonely experience for many of them, where they don't get that immediate feedback of, was this a good episode or not? Like a comedian often does. Like a comedian can tell if their joke lands flat or not, where a podcaster, is anyone listening? Do they really like it? Like, can you please just listen? So, we're really trying to help them. We want podcasting to just continue to grow, and we want these people to be heard. And we're partnering with a lot of companies to get that, boost that awareness out there.
So it seems that you're looking for partnerships with other podcasters and podcast entities that can kind of help you determine not only the direction of your product, but maybe some of the features and whether or not what you're putting together is working. So the validation, the
Yeah,
following, the growth.
and a
Yeah,
lot
they're
of
really.
the go ahead,
Sorry, go
Zach.
ahead, Rob.
Okay, I
Yeah,
was going to say a lot of the local meetup groups as well. We've been partnering with those, and we're going down to an event in LA this weekend called Outlier, which is organized by a gentleman named Ever Gonzalez, and that's within the LA podcast meetup group down there is kind of running it. So that's been a tremendous help with us getting connected to all these different entities.
Great. And Zach, did you want to add something?
yeah. I was just going to say the different guesting platforms that we like. A podcast guest is a big one. We're forming some partnerships therein because they can really use Squadcast at scale. They have all of these interviews, and they're by far mostly remote. So there's some interesting partnership opportunities there. Some of the other tech players in the space as well, like Hindenburg and Libsyn, we're looking at ways, excuse me, we're looking at ways to integrate with their solutions within Squadcast and vice versa. Yeah, so I think the events, the guesting platforms, and then also we do some sponsorship of a few shows. So the Extraordinary Negroes podcast with Jay Connor is proud to be partners with them, and then also a podcast network called Public House Media with Baxter Colburn. They have like I think 7 or 8 shows. Beauties and Headcanons, I think, is their kind of front runner, and they're all recording on Squadcast. So it's really great to help the individual podcaster, but also the networks, and then also the like broader and broader scales as we work our way up.
Thank you so much, Zach. What resources would you recommend to someone that is either thinking about launching their own company, or maybe someone that's interested in joining this whole world of, podcasting or innovation?
Yeah, I think there's some seminal books that have helped us grow along the way. I think Lean Startup is definitely one of those by Eric Ries. The Stanford has their course on YouTube, How to Start a Startup, with some of the Y Combinator folks. Paul Graham is very insightful there, and then some of it is very specific to your industry
Mhm.
that you're looking to service. So I think that's another thing, is being defining what success looks like within your industry, um, and then the process of learning firsthand from your industry. I think Mark Zuckerberg has a quote where it's like we exist to learn as a startup, and we definitely take that same approach, where it's just a process of rapidly learning from people firsthand about the challenges that they face, and then we're very fortunate in that we're in a position to be able to say, okay, we can actually move the needle to help you overcome these challenges, and that's really how we look at our work that we do.
Thank you. And are there influencers that you follow either through social media or people that, whose opinion you value? And that we should
Yeah,
follow. And that we should follow.
yeah, totally. I mean, there's some typical ones, like Elon Musk is super inspiring. Rock mentioned Harry within the Harry Duran within the podcast community. Yeah, I'll think of some more. You want to name off some, Rock?
Well, within our existing network, I think Joaquin Alvarado from Studio to Be has been a huge influence with us. He has a radio background, so and Studio to Be, by the way, is a co-working space in Oakland, so that's kind of where our one of our headquarters is, since we are a remote team. But having the ability to be around Joaquin and his partner Ken, and learn from guys that have these deep roots in radio, although it's not exactly like podcasting, there are similarities, and he's really been inspiring for us as of late. But then I also think of, as a podcaster, a person that I find very influential who puts out great content is Pat Flynn. He really is good. If you want to be a kind of a solopreneur, content creator, podcaster, I think Pat Flynn has a really good system down, and just seems like a really good guy too. So, um, so that's definitely who I would recommend if you're, want to get into stuff like that.
Yeah, same with Dave Jackson, Chris Curran. They're, all friends of ours, and I think that the podcast community is also very approachable. So if you reach out to these people, like they're not just, on high on Twitter, like putting out stuff, like they'll actually respond to you and talk to you. So don't be shy. Reach out and talk to these folks. They're all great people.
Thank you. And I'm going to interview Elsie Escobar in a future episode. I reached out to her, and I was very
Awesome.
I was very surprised, pleasantly surprised by the immediate response and just the support. It's a very supportive community, and that's why many of us that are into podcasting do it out of passion, first and foremost. So, and thank you for creating the tools to help us make podcasting a better experience for those listening. Let's move on to personal influences, because Latinx America really focuses on the personal journey and who has influenced you personally. Was it like a tío? Was it a tia? Was it an abuelita? What in your life, sorry, has had the most influence for either you, Rockwell, or Zach? Who has influenced you the most and why?
Yeah, my wife and I were just actually having this conversation while driving to Sacramento last weekend, and I would say, like personally, my grandfather is a huge inspiration. He just has this like otherworldly standards for everything that he does, and I think it was impossible that some of that didn't rub off on me. He's like a uber perfectionist, and was super inspirational to see, that he was the head saw filer for a milling company in the Central Valley before he retired. And, it wasn't enough for him to be a saw filer or even a good saw filer. He's like, I'm going to be the best saw filer in the state. It just, nobody told him he needed to be the best at what he did, but, he took that upon himself. So that's hugely inspiring to me personally. Really, really grateful to have him and my grandma both in my life still. There, today's actually my grandma's birthday, and so I was talking with her this morning. And then professionally, I would say it's hard not to be an entrepreneur in my generation, our generation, to not be inspired by Elon Musk. I'm a huge space nerd, and a lot of the podcasts that I listen to are science fiction and then just space news in general. So I think, some of the missions that he's taken on. He certainly doesn't have to in the financial position that he's in, but it sounds like, or it feels like he's one of the people moving humanity forward, and I think that's super inspiring to me.
Thanks, Zach. And how old is your abuelita?
Yeah, so he just had his 97th birthday.
Yeah. And what about your grandma? Today is her birthday.
Yeah, I believe she's a few years younger. Yeah, she's, I think, 2 years younger than my grandpa.
Wow. So they're in their
Yeah,
90s.
and
You're
they're both in their 90s, and they're both first generation Mexican American. They lived in yeah, El Paso, Texas, and then there's another town that my grandma was from. But yeah, they both moved to California and grew up here together in Central Valley. And my grandpa has done all kinds of work, but he was a sheriff's officer for a while, and then I think most of his career was a saw filer.
That's inspiring, and happy birthday to your grandma. Rockwell, on your
Thank you.
end, who has inspired you the most, and personally and professionally, and why?
Yeah, I would think overall it would have to be my uncle. He has been the biggest inspiration to me. He's dyslexic. He doesn't have a college or really a much of a high school education. Most of my family, I'm actually the first person to go and graduate from college. But to see him succeed with all of the limitations that you would think he have, and to turn those into really like superpowers for him, and to see his drive and his tenacity, and to know that that's in my blood, and I don't necessarily, I didn't have dyslexia, thank goodness, but so it gives me a lot of self-belief to continue to do something as crazy as entrepreneurship, because so what he did was, he has a sales background, and he was a sales manager for a TV station in Fresno, very, very successful, did well, nice cushy job with benefits. And in the height of the financial crisis, the most recent one,
Mm-hmm.
he bought like a real estate franchise. They build custom homes, and so he's going into the real estate market at this time of crisis, and just seeing the way he handled people doubting him, and he never once believed that they were right, that it was completely inspiring, because that's certainly something that we're dealing with right now. I mean, Zach and I had very comfortable positions, and by every stretch of the imagination, we were successful, but that we wanted to do something more. And I think if I didn't have someone like that in my background to help me believe in myself, that I could do it, maybe I wouldn't be here. And another person that's honestly pushed me, and this might sound corny, and I hope to don't embarrass you, Zach, but Zach is another person who's been a huge influence on me. I like to think that we're both making each other a better person, and we have
Thank
a
you.
very different. You're welcome. We have very different skill sets and very different perspectives, but we really want to do something neat, and we really want to help people out. And we know podcasting isn't curing cancer, but we do think that it can make the world a better place.
And you know what? When I met you, both of you, when you were talking, I met you separately, and then I met you when we were having a conversation. You guys inspired me, and you give me hope, because you're not only creating a product and you're launching your venture, you're second or third generation, but you're giving back. Yes, you might not be curing cancer, but at least through my podcast, you're sharing your stories and you're inspiring other people that might want to do the same thing. So, not curing cancer, but you might be able to inspire someone to go into tech, or to, launch their own venture just like you did, and to have the sacrifices or make the sacrifices that you have made, or that your families, as you mentioned, have made, to be the best they could be. So, with that, I would like to thank you both for taking the time to join us today. And I look forward to continuing a conversation and continuing to follow your path.
Thank you, Adriana.
Thank you.
It's a great opportunity.
Yeah, and if you want to get your podcast started, head over to squadcast.fm. You can get 14 days for free on us, and you have full access to Zach and me if you want to talk to us or go through a demo. Well, we'd love to see you. Love to talk to you.
There goes the business development guy. Good job. And and I have to say, they get to you. They get back to you right away. So thank you so much for your time, and we will be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Zach and Rock mentioned that their next step is to continue seeking strategic partnerships and funding. So if anyone listening wants to partner or provide funding for Squadcast, you can reach them at zach@squadcast.fm or rockwell@squadcast.fm, or through social media. Well, now let's move on to our key word of the episode, which today is open source. And open source is defined by opensource.com as referring to something people can modify and share because its design is publicly accessible. The term originated in the context of software development to designate a specific approach to creating computer programs. Today, however, open source designates a broader set of values, what we call the open source way. And open source projects, products, or initiatives embrace and celebrate principles of open exchange, collaborative participation, rapid prototyping, transparency, meritocracy, and community-oriented development. And once again, this definition was provided by opensource.com. So if you want additional information, you can visit them. During our conversation, Zach mentioned that his first experience was working on a project with Google Open Source. So if you want to play around with open source, you might want to go to opensource.google.com, and that might be a good place to start for you. Before we end this episode, I really want to point out how Zach found a way to express his creativeness through tech. He was into art, painting, and design, and his background, along with the tech skills that he developed, helped him become a creator and a founder. So the next time you hear someone discard the importance of the arts, you can mention Zach's story, so you can make a point of how a background and passion for the arts can help someone innovate and become a creator. And in this case, he's creating something for a niche market, which is something that's very close and dear to my heart because podcasting is still considered a niche market. Okay, well, don't forget to leave a rating for us or feedback through any platform that you use to listen to our podcast. And we hope that the conversations with Zach and Rockwell were helpful to you. And look forward to having you back next week. Thanks for joining us today. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Latinx America and on Twitter at America Latinx, or email any questions or ideas to latinxamerica@gmail.com. Gracias y hasta la próxima semana.